We are in Samuel, Shmuel Aleph, and we were talking about, just to remind you, it was the Malbim was going on a whole thing about the philosopher. In her song, in Chana's song, she's arguing with the philosophers. The philosophers were of the opinion, I'm just summarizing, the philosophers were of the opinion that if Hashem is Hashem, namely God is the supreme being who is who is holy, so then he cannot worry about those low people like us, because holiness cannot deal with materialism. And if you think about it, how we view ascetics. Whenever you have an ascetic, what does an ascetic do? He goes to the top of a mountain, sits there with barely his clothes on, I guess, and meditates all day to God, because anything that would have to do with materialism would go directly against that. So philosophers, like every good human being on this planet, they assume that God is like them or like us. So as a result, they define God by our standards. That's also, by the way, when you get into the problem of good versus evil, okay? That is a human perspective, totally human perspective. What I think is good, you may think is evil. And so on and so forth. It could be a relative term, or it could be a absolute term. But it's not. But even when we say it's an absolute term, when we're speaking, it's really not. It's just a relative term. Murder is wrong, right? We all would agree murder is wrong. Well, what happens when you destroy, or we would say that destroying something is wrong. You can't destroy. And then we say, what are you talking about? You kill cancer cells. It's good to destroy. It's good to slaughter. It's good to do that. You have murderers. You have this. You have that. It's good to get rid of that. And the answer is, you're right. You say, 100%. Then there'll be those who say no, but fine. But for the most part, people would say that we have to exterminate certain things. Okay, so extermination is not bad. It's who you're exterminating that may be bad, or what you're exterminating may be bad. Here you have another instance where people who have animals, everybody would, well, not again. It used to be that everybody agreed. The Torah states that you cannot castrate. You can't castrate a human, you can't castrate an animal. What happens? We own animals these days, and we don't want the animal to come back pregnant, so we castrate the male and we neuter the female, and so on and so forth, and all because we want that little pet. We don't want to deal with anything else. So, but it's against the law. But we don't see that. We've convinced ourselves.
Jewish law.
Yeah, Jewish law. Right. We've convinced ourselves that that's good to do because it controls the animal population, so on and so forth. Really, but again, it's a relative moral standard when you're looking at that. Compared with what the Torah did was an absolute standard. So here that's how you always have to look at a philosopher's question. He's always coming from a human perspective, and he or she is putting their human perspective onto God. If God is all good, he couldn't do blank. If God is all knowing, this couldn't be. Where's the free will? If God, we're so stuck in our own limited capacities, as I think these books put it, the Jewish press, our Lilliputian minds, that's all we know. And we want to, as a result, put God into a box. So that's what these philosophers are doing. And they were saying there's no way that God cares about us individually. Yes, on a general sense, God controls things, but certainly not hashgacha pratit. You did something, God cares about what you did. No, they didn't accept that. And so she's saying, no, you're wrong. I'm living proof that you're wrong. God does care. God does listen to my prayers. God does listen to our prayers. And each individual, and gives each individual what they need, and so on and so forth. That's what her whole argument is here. And she's using herself and the birth of Shmuel to prove that point.
It's momentous. Her point.
Right. Why is it momentous?
Because it's exactly what we were talking in Lunch and Learn. whether we are connected to God and He's connected to us,
Right.
or whether we're separate. And,
Correct.
You know,
Okay.
In other words, like
it's a very different religious. The Shem Shemayim
Right.
is just eliminated if you make that cut between
Correct.
man and God.
Correct. Correct.
it's, some philosophical positions in some religions or at some parts of certain religions say that also that yes, God created the world, then He just kind of stood back, letting it run.
That's a bowler argument. But they call that the bowling argument, where God is a bowler. God throws the ball down. Well, the bowler throws the ball down the alley.
Got it
started, and where it goes, God does not control. That there is an argument out there. You know who takes that argument on? The Reconstructionist. They take that on. Which is really counterproductive because they don't believe in God in that sense. They don't believe. Well, I guess that's how they would say it. God is not all powerful. God is God is none of the omnis. In other words, we say God is omnibenevolent, omnipotent, so on and so forth. So they take that away and they say God is the bowler. That's their thing. God's a bowler. He threw the ball down. He started the world, but where it's going to go, He can't stop. It's just like it's not in the bowler's control to pull the ball back. So also it's not God's control.
You do everything right. You got your hand in the right position, the right.
Everything's right.
Right speed.
Right.
It should go good at this point.
Correct. And again, I once saw that in a book that is, it was a book explaining the different movements. And that was their explanation of the Reconstructionist movement. Yeah, it's what you call boiling down their ridiculous comment to a simple explanation. But that's what they hold in reality. If you talk to a Reconstructionist rabbi, which the only way you're going to get it, because if you talk to a Reconstructionist person, 9 times out of 10 they don't know what they're talking about. Just like any other good lay person out there, they really don't know why they're joining. They're joining because their friends go, for the most part. And that's, by the way, that's also for Old Orthodoxy. They joined because their friends went. They weren't Shomer Shabbos. They didn't keep kosher, but they joined because that's what they felt comfortable. Fine. Now, I think in the Orthodox world, at least in the ones we deal with it today, it's changed. Now I'm going because I actually believe this stuff. So if I believe it, then it's only natural that I'm going to go there. I don't even have to like the people. I just have to go because it's where I end up going. Okay.
I
But
can tell from a lot of the classes that you've taught that you have children and that you used to be a teacher of young people. And illustrations like the candy machine, where you pull the levers, or
Right.
what kind of phone connection you have.
Yeah, it's true.
They stick in your mind, and you remember that's a momentous difference. That what Hannah's saying here.
Correct. And that's the biggest thing, where she's driving the point home, according to the Malbim, that it's not so simple. You can't. We need to leave our philosophy and give in to and understand that Hashem is greater than we're going to make Him, and there's no way that we're ever going to figure it out. But she said, according to you and your logic, you'd be right. She's saying, according to what the model you set up, you're right, but your model is wrong. That's all she's saying to them. Your model is wrong.
You don't have all the data.
Right, you don't have the data, so leave me alone. And I'm living proof that you don't have the data. Okay, that's what she's saying. That's what I'm saying. It's according to the Malbim, who normally, by the way, does not get into these types of explanations. The Malbim is very much into, let's get to the simple understanding of the text. And for him to go on this long-winded, if you will, assault on the philosophers, either meant that he was dealing with philosophers, and he saw this, because again, nobody else is saying what he's saying. This is a very unique approach to this story, to this prayer.
It's come down through the ages in theology. This is an important subject of whether you know, L'Shem Shemayim, whether you
Right.
can have a direct relationship with God, or whether you have to go through the priests and the intermediaries,
Right.
because you're not on a level to.
Well, that would be one argument. That would be the first argument that she had with prayer. But this is even going further. This is saying that, again, the philosophers would argue, this was one of their arguments. They said, if God is perfect, then nothing should have to be changed. If nothing has to be changed, then there's no reason for him to have contact with us. And therefore, there is no Hashgacha Pratit. You understand what I'm saying? That's the philosophical argument. Again, they're making it by their standards. But if God is perfect, so then in the perfection, no change ever needs to be taken place. For us to say that he changed you from being, Chana, from being a sterile woman to now being a woman who can bear children, means necessarily that God changed his mind, which means that God is not perfect, which means God is not God. And she's saying no. The argument is fallacious. That's a totally wrong argument, because she's saying our God is all part of the system. It's not a change, it's just part of the system. He wants our prayers so that he can do something else. So that he can, it's all, one contingent upon the other. It's not a matter of a change. But because of your limited, again, your limited point, your limited view of what God is, and you've decided this is what God is, that's why, and it makes logical sense when you say it, at least it sounds logical, until I tell you your foundation is wrong. By the way, Mr. Ornstein, that's what you always want to argue with the Meshiganas online, the atheists.
Yeah, I was just thinking, yeah.
But that's really, again, if I buy their basic premise, then they're right. Then it follows logically.
Right, they follow that same philosophical line and say, therefore there is no God, period.
Right. If you follow their basic premise. But if you break away, if you say, no, your premise is wrong, period, because you're looking at it from a different angle, we can't have this discussion because I'm starting here, you're starting here, and we're all using the same terms. And so it's ridiculous. It's like a communist getting together with a capitalist and trying to make peace between them and coming to a détente. It's not going to happen. It's just an impossibility. It's like the Democrats trying to get together with the Republicans. It's not going to happen, no matter who we get there.
Point of departure.
Yeah.
As you set up your experiment, you're already set up
Right.
with a
Right.
result in mind.
Right. And you have your thing. So that's what I'm saying. When it comes to those arguments, they're fallacious. And they want it to sound intellectual, but there's nothing intellectual about it. It's arguing apples and oranges every single time. And that's what she's saying to them. You started off wrong. You understand? That's what she's really going with. Okay, so we got to 5, right? Verse 5, I believe. So if we didn't, we'll do it again.
4.
I had 4 now.
4? I'm sorry, 4. Okay, 4. So it says, Keshe Giborim, the bows of the mighty are chatem, broken. V'nichshalim azru chayil. And those who stumble are girded with strength. So what is, let's just look at it very quickly. He says, the Mesilas David simply says, what does it mean? It says, on the one that knows everything. He pays man according to his actions. And suddenly the bows of are broken, and the strength, and the tripping, what do they call it? The stumbling in the armies. Okay. So he says, again, you think one way, but it doesn't work that way. So then the Malbim says in this, Kesh Giborim, Shem Keshu Hu Shem Min, Kamo Eitz Peri, he's saying it's a noun, Vayihili Shor V'Chamor, Shekashu Giborim Yechitu the Chulash. So he says the bows the bows of the strength will be broken to their weaknesses. Ve'elu yeshayu nichshalim, and those that were tripped ad hena azru chayil, until now they were girded with strength. And now we're looking at the matter of the rich and the poor. Okay, he's giving us a heads up. We're looking at the difference between the rich and the poor. Seveim balechem niskaru, those who were sated with bread, satiated with bread. So now they're renting themselves out. Remember, it's a nifal here, niskaru. Right? It's not. They had to rent themselves out. They were rented out. Okay, re'evim chadelu, and the ones who are hungry stopped. Ad akara yalda shiva, until a woman who was, what do you call infertile woman? What do you call the infertile woman? Barren. Until the barren woman bore 7 children. V'rabat banim, and the one who had many children, lala, mourned greatly. She was bereaved. What's going on? This again. The Mitzudas Dov explained, Seveim, Anishim Shayu Seveim Nasir Avim. The ones who were made, the ones who were full, satisfied, they were made into poor, hungry people. And so much so that they had to rent themselves out to work to work for bread. And the hungry people they were hiring themselves out in order to stop their hunger. They no longer had to hire themselves out because they found they had enough. So this is, in other words, Hashem, we say this every day in Shemona Esrei actually, that Hashem has the power to enrich, He has the power to take us down. Right? So until the barren woman bore 7 children, which means kol kach rabba hashgachto, so much so is God's supervision. Shemi haita akara, that until so much so that even a barren woman yelda shiva banim, she would bore 7 children. Misha haita bat rabim rabat banim, or the woman who had a lot of children, nichrata b'avdan kol b'nei, all of them would be killed. What was going on there was every time that Chana had a child, one of Penina's would die. Okay? Why? Because Penina had made fun of Chana. So that was punishment. So Hashem said to, Penina said to Chana, please daven that my children don't die. I didn't mean to make fun of you. I was only trying to do it l'shem shamayim, to get you to daven, and now all my children are dying, so please don't, pray on my behalf. And as a result of that, she is credited, Chana is credited with having more children than she really did. Because she didn't really have 7 children. She adopted because she saved the lives of Penina's children by praying for them, so she's given credit for their birth. Okay? That's the midrash. It goes with it, but it's a beautiful midrash. All right. Malbim says, Seveim. Elu shahayu seveim. Those that were poor, those who were satiated again, they become poor until they have to rent themselves out in order for the bread. And these that were poor, again, like we said, that they were hungry, and then they until they had they would become rich, so they wouldn't have to work themselves out. A third difference is when the matter of sons. The barren woman wants to say, how is it possible that God's supervision could go on all these little particulars? It's so much so that He could even supervise over this barren woman, that she gives birth to 7 children. That's more banim harve, which means Malbim says she doesn't really have 7 children. He's saying that means many children. Shiva is not necessarily 7 in this case. That's what he's saying. Okay. By the way, the other people are very much on his side. Maharikra says the same thing. Shiva, he says, just means many. And he says, Kol Lashon Sheva Yipol Tzaddik V'Kam V'Ayin. It's just a matter of a number that means more than one. Okay?
Or more than two, perhaps?
More than two. But no, it's many. It's just saying more than one, many. And not necessarily seven.
Well, it's like we would say either several or many.
Right. A couple, several, many. Right. All those different terms.
Yeah,
right.
A couple doesn't necessarily mean two either.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even though we normally do mean it
Yeah.
to be two,
Yeah.
but yeah. And few doesn't mean three, and several doesn't mean four, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. But again, we use those terms. So he's saying that's what's going on here. Kiderech lipos mispar shiva al mispar gadol. He says clearly that it's the normal way to use the number 7 on a great number. Kamo v'yasafti l'asherechem sheva, like when God says in Leviticus, I'm going to add another 7 punishments to you because you didn't do what I want. Remember, there were 7 things that we did. We stopped learning. We stopped learning. We stopped teaching. We stopped all these sins we have, and ultimately we reject God. So God says, for those 7 sins you did against me, I'm going to punish you 7 times. But he does it 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. How many times is? Come on, you hit me once. You're going to keep hitting me. So the answer here is 7 doesn't mean 7. It means many times. Again, when it says that when you're chasing the nations, they will. When you find the nations, they will flee before you 7 and go 7 different ways. Again, it doesn't literally mean 7. They'll scatter. That's what it means. Shazeh shinoi prate be'inyan briot, a goof, and that is the difference between the matter, the particulars of the health of the body of the man and his atmosphere. Alzeh ta'aneh le'mor. So that's when she said. She answered. She said, "V'yata de'u." Now know, u'ra'u, and see. Ki emed hu ashir kol elehanishlim. That is, you see the truth that all of these differences that come out from the edict of the upper of God's hashgach, of God's supervision, v'choshevet memala mamatam, that he considers it from that's considered from the bottom to the top. Neged mashanemar, and opposite what she's saying, that the barren woman will bore 7. She's saying, and so on and so forth. She's really trying to prove the argument, or Malbim is trying to prove the argument here, that, using her words, that you philosophers really don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot going on. God doesn't work in our ways. Then it says more. Hashem me'mit mechayeh. God kills and God causes to live. In other words, he resuscitates. And then it goes on to say, Morid Sha'ol Vial, he brings people down to the dead, to the grave, and raises them up. So what's going on there? So Malbim, the Meshuz David says, when it says Hashem kills and revives, he says, Lo b'mikra ba. It doesn't happen by happenstance. People don't die because it just, it was an accident. Like our kids always say, it was an accident. I didn't mean that. God doesn't work like that. It doesn't just happen. That's what she's saying. Ki im yad Hashem astazot. Hashem's doing this. Hashem, by the way, this also gets to all the tragedies we've dealt with. Don't say that the Germans killed us. Don't say that this killed us. Don't say that these people, don't say that, what's the German that was saving everybody? Schindler. Don't say Schindler saved us. He didn't do anything. He was only God's, he had the choice. I don't want to ever take away from the free choice. They had the choice of what to do. They didn't have to do it. The fact that they did is why they were punished. But the decree was really from Hashem. And we always have to go back to Hashem and say, what did we do wrong? How should we ever fix that up? That's our personal thing. But to think that it was happenstance or that there's a logic to it from a human point of view, absolutely not. And it's not a mikra. It's not a happenstance. It wasn't that, if you look at how Hitler got elected, It was what, 23% of the entire people who elected him from Germany, because he jailed everybody else.
Oh.
So I think there was 23%. And people said, if they would have seen this, if they would have seen blah, blah, if they would have seen the writing on the wall, it never would have happened. It was dumb luck that he made it. It was dumb luck that Obama made it. It was dumb luck that Trump made it. Nobody ever wins on their own merits. I noticed that. It's always dumb luck. Okay? But it's not dumb luck. It's all from Hashem. Hashem is orchestrating this for whatever reasons. Again, that's not for us to understand every time. But that's what she's saying. Hashem is conducting this. Who may mipnei rabim babanim. He killed the children, the many children of that person. And he revived the children of the barren. V'lo tashkil maledu mibetim. He did not. It's not a matter of being born from the womb. I'm sorry, and from the womb and from pregnancy. Fine. I'm sorry. That was she was davening up Malbim. Okay. So and then Morid Shaoli brings him down to the grave. He wants to say there that he's going down to depression. And the one who was the barren, you're bringing up to happiness. You're bringing her up. You're reviving her. Okay, that's how that's like I said, Mr. David. The Malbim, on the other hand, he goes in the same way. Hashem kills the many children, and he was a Mechaya, the woman Masifa Ki Morid, and then he adds that he brings down to the grave and he brings up Ed HaMeit Ba'atzmo, he brings up the dead himself to cause him to live. Shehi Techiyat HaMeitim. This is revival of the dead, resurrection. V'ratz L'mo Ki Gimel Miftachot Lo Yinimsru Biyad Shaliach. To want to say that it's a famous story that 3 keys were not given into the hands of the messenger. Shehem, what are they? They are the key of life, the key of resurrection, and the key of rain. Why rain, by the way? What's rain have to do with that? Rain is a resurrection. Because if you ever, this year we've had plenty of rain, thank God. But in other years, there has been droughts that we had, all our grass was dead. It was brown. Wherever you went, it was brown. And look out for those people who have sprinklers and put them on. 2 things. But it's if they didn't, the grass was always brown. And then suddenly it would rain for 2-3 days, and everything would be green.
It resurrects everything.
It resurrects everything. So that's why rain is put into that equation. So he says, V'yan chashav po, and so he answers that, and he considers here that the life rain, which is the parnasa, which is the livelihood, chashav gam meitim. That livelihood is also considered revival of the dead. When I give a person a livelihood, because when the person doesn't have a livelihood, it's like they're dead. When you say a poor person, is as if they're dead. And that's why it says in the story of Shemot, when Hashem is telling Moshe to go back, he says, Moshe, you can return to Pharaoh because your enemies are dead. Who were his enemies? Datan and Avira, right? They were famous guys. Datan and Aviram are they're the evil guys of the Torah. They're troublemakers. They are the troublemakers. The ultimate troublemakers. They're the ones who die in the revolt of Korach. Korach, Datan, and Aviram. So, but they were alive. So how could Hashem say they were dead? The rabbis explain, because they lost their wealth. When they lose their wealth, they consider like they're dead. Why? Because they have no influence. When's the only time people are listened to? When they're rich. If they're not rich, nobody listens. You have nothing to offer me. Leave me alone. A person gets rich, suddenly they know everything. It's unbelievable how much they know, but they only know what they know. Okay, so they might not know everything, and that's what's going here. The Malbim is saying that what she's talking about is when parnasa is also considered techiyat hameitim. A beautiful statement. And then it says Hashem morish ma'asher, that Hashem causes to inherit. Causes to become poor, and he umasher, and causes to be rich. Mashpil af meromem, and he also lowers and he also raises. He also exalts. Okay. So Mrs. David says, Hashem morish et esveim, he impoverishes the ones who are satisfied, ad shelechem niskaru, again until they have to go out and rent themselves off for bread. Uma'asir da'evim, he makes rich the poor, ad she'echadelu, like she said before, until they can they cease from having to rent themselves out. And in this manner, mashpil geot hasveim, the arrogance of the satiated ones are lowered, humbled, because they've exalted the hungry ones over them. So not only do they, not only what they have to rent themselves out for themselves, but more they have to rent out they're renting themselves out, and the other ones are exalted over them. So it's an interesting concept. Then and Malbim says Hashem. So this is again corresponding to when the satiated ones have to rent themselves out, and it says God impoverishes, and to this one he enriches. That's also going back to when it says the bows of the strong are broken, and then he says he lowers the strong, and the ones who rule with their strength, even at that point, the poor and the weak are exalted over them. So she's going back and forth in this, showing that there's God is intimately connected, and if you're going to act arrogant when you're up there, then Hashem's going to take you down. On the other hand, she's saying to them, if you act appropriately, God will leave you where you are. You understand? In other words, the only reason a person is rich or poor, satiated or hungry, is because that is what they need and what they're supposed to react, and teach them how they're supposed to react. And if they act appropriately, so then the rich will remain rich, the poor will become rich. But if they act inappropriately, so then the rich will become poor, and the poor, who the rich were keeping down anyway, will become their bosses.
Both in this world and in the next.
Certainly in this world. In the next world, she wasn't, I don't know if she was talking about next world yet, because the next world, it hurts a person much more in this world than the other world. Because in this world we have free choice. In the next world, it's true that what do they say? The meek inherit the world or something, right? So it's true that it's going to be topsy-turvy. That because whatever a person does in this world, if they're doing properly and nothing's working for them, that means that Hashem is really going to reward them in the next world. They're getting everything here and the other way around. But nonetheless, it's not something that we should always hope for. We should really try to improve ourselves and again be happy with what we are.
You have to get your balance sheet in this world.
Correct. And you really don't want to be balanced. You want to be way in the black.
Get it.
You want to be way in the black.
One of the things that from these many classes I've had, just how important names are, and the meaning of names. And Chana means compassion or grace.
Grace, right? More grace. Rachum would mean compassion.
But just the way she treats people.
Right. Right.
This connection with Hashem, but it's in her. And turning to prayer and then forgiving, and you said saving the other children.
Right. It's 100%. She was a good woman. Okay, verse 8. So make him afardal. He lifts up the poor from the dust. Me'ashpot yarim evyon. From the dunghill. He raised up the evyon, by the way, is Rashi said many times that an evyon, which we'll translate as a pauper, I guess. Yeah, a pauper is somebody who wants everything. He sees something, he wants it. That unlike a poor person who's just poor, he doesn't have money. That's how he's poor. But an evyon is somebody who desires everything. So they'll never be happy. So from the dunghill, he raised up the evyon, the hoshiv imudivim, so that they can sit with the princes, v'chisi kavod in chilem, and the seat of glory. They will inherit. He causes them to inherit. Right? Kila Hashem mitzuchei eretz, because for Hashem, he places the world upon them. V'yasher aleim tevel. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I said it wrong. Kila Hashem mitzuchei eretz, because Hashem mitzuchei is foundations of the world. That's what it says. Matzvei eretz. So he is the foundation of the world, and then it says v'yashem yasher aleim tevel. He puts on them the world. Fine. Puts the world upon them. So what does this mean? So Rashi, the Meshudas David explains, Makom, making Efadal again, he raises the poor from the dust. Misha Hayadal, V'nivzeh, the one who was poor and was despised, Shacha ad la'afar, he was lowered, he was to the ground. Hashem mikimu mina afar. Hashem will raise him from the dust. Me'ashpo from the dunghills, and so Rash, Meshudas David just says, Kafel ha'davar b'milot shano. The Chana is just saying the same thing but using different language. Lahoshiv, to return them, Merimom Ashpo, to return them to raise them up from the dunghills, Umagbiu od lahoshiv oto imdivim, and to raise them even more, still more, so much so that they're sitting with the princes, liudom elahem, so that they would be like them. Yen chilem, he causes them to inherit, which means yechovdu be'ein ebriot, they would become honored in the people's eyes, kilu hem alumdim v'kavod, as if they were taught in honor, ubal lahem inachal avotam, and it's as if they got this inheritance from their fathers. You understand? So here again, you have this pauper, what we call the nouveau rich, right? That's the term, nouveau rich. Nouveau rich, and what happens? These people will treat them like they were always royalty. Now, the old money always looks at the new money as charlatans. Am I not correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here, what she's saying is money in the bottom line. And if you're brought up with kavod, nobody's going. If you're brought up and you sit there and you act properly, nobody's really going to know, and they're always going to, and they'll assume that you were always brought up like that. And he says, "Why? Kila Shem zeb avosh yisod ha'aretz heim Hashem." This is because the foundations of the world, they belong to Hashem. V'al yisodot ha'heim. And on these foundations, Asahu ha'olam lezeh, he has made this world, and he can do what he wants in this world. So again, he's going to raise people, he's going to lower people. It's all from Hashem. It's not from you, it's not your hard work. And the Malbim says in this, Mekim Mosif Lezesh, Mekim Adal, he adds to this to say, he raises up the poor from the dust. And Mosif, and again he adds, Kigam Eda Evyon, even the Evyon, Shahu Garua Minadal. He's even worse off than the poor, again, because he's the guy who wants everything. He's never happy. Yarimina Ashpa, he will lift him up from the dunghills, which is lower than even the dirt. V'lo levad, and not only will he lift him up, I mean, if you're told from how far he fell, Rak Merim Baharama Ugadola. He will raise him up so much and so high that he will sit with the princes. Not only this alone, Ki gam kisei kavodin chlim. He'll also cause him to inherit the throne of glory. Kol el beit devarim. So it's inclusive of two things. One, shoshiv amal kisei kavod shehem kes melucha. That is going to cause him to sit on the throne of glory, which the throne of honor, which is the throne of kingdom. So they should have a kingdom to those who, for the inheritance that comes after them. Because it's for Hashem. Don't say that this is a change in how his world is running. It's not that way. Why? Because the foundations of the world that are above him, they all belong to us. They are all put in by Hashem. And that foundation is what everybody is, what everything is relying upon. Which is the supervision of Hashem. That if Hashem would remove His supervision for 1 second, then everything would return to being null and void. And on these foundations, Hashem placed and established the world that is His settlement. Again, it's rely upon Hashem. So therefore, or if so, all these changes, it's not coming from the side, rather it's coming from the corners of that which was received. So in other words, everything has a plan. It's not like there's no plan here. And we'll have to stop at 9. And so, again,
beautiful poem.
It is. And for those who are listening, we won't be back until September for on break. Enjoy your vacation.